Hi, fourth grade. This is Miss Wilson coming to you again with another lesson. Today we're going to be doing lesson number 26, problem set. So let's pause the video while we get lesson 26, problem set. All right, so you should have your lesson 26 problem set worksheet. Today we're going to be comparing mixed numbers. So when we're comparing mixed numbers, we're really going to say which number is bigger. So again, we're going to take the information that we already know and apply it to this. So one of the things that we already know is we cannot compare apples and oranges, which means we can't compare improper fractions. And remember, improper fraction, the numerator at the top is greater than the denominator at the bottom. We cannot compare improper fractions to mixed numbers. And we already know that mixed numbers have a whole number and a fraction. So lesson 24 and lesson 25, we learned how to change improper fractions to a mixed number, and then we learned how to change mixed numbers to an improper fraction. So we have to make these the same. Now, I always suggest changing the improper fraction to a mixed number. So let's do that. So again, we're going to use what we learned in lesson 24, where the fraction bar means divide. So our dividend, what's being divided, is going to be our numerator, our top number, and it's going to be divided by our denominator, which is our divisor. Now, if you're still using multiples to divide, we're going to write our multiples to the side. 12, 24, 36. Now, I don't need to go any further than 36, because 36 is greater than my dividend. So I'm going to ask myself, what's the closest I can get to 29 without going over? 24. Then I'm going to count how many groups that is. 1, 2. So 2 goes in my quotient. Then I'm going to multiply what's in my quotient times my divisor. 2 times 12, 24. Then my next step of division is to do what? Subtract. 29 minus 24, 5. Now my remainder becomes my numerator of my fraction. And remember, my denominator never changes. So now, instead of 29 twelfths, we have 2 and 5 twelfths. Now, can I compare a mixed number to a mixed number? Yes. When I compare, I always start with my whole numbers. And we know this is B. I didn't write it to the side, but number 1B. So I'm going to compare 2 and 2. Can I figure out which one is greater? No. So that means I need to compare my fractions. So I'm going to write my fractions over to the side, and I'm going to use the butterfly method. Remember, the butterfly method is I'm going to take the numerator of the first fraction and circle it with the denominator of the second fraction and multiply. 5 times 8, 40. Then I'm going to take the denominator of my first fraction and circle it with the numerator of my second fraction, and I'm going to multiply. 12 times 7, 84. Then I'm going to compare which one is greater, 40 or 84. 84. And remember, going all the way back to second grade, the alligator mouth opens to the bigger number. But really, this is saying the less than sign. So we're saying that 29 twelfths or 2 and 5 twelfths, they're the exact same thing, is less than 2 and 7/8. using the previous knowledge that we already had. So let's go to the second one of B. Now we're comparing 29 twelfths to 3 1/6. So we just changed 29 twelfths to a mixed number. We just did it up here. So we don't have to do that math again. So we know that 29 twelfths as a mixed number is 2 5 twelfths. So when we're doing comparing mixed numbers, we always start with our whole number. So I have 2 and I have 3. Can I tell which one is greater? Yes, 3 is greater than 2. So I don't need to look at the fractions because my whole numbers automatically told me which one was greater. 3 is greater than 2. Now, if this was an improper fraction, then I would change that to a whole number, but it's not. So I'm saying that 3 1/6 is greater than 2 5 twelfths. All right, so let's go to number 2, B, because we're not going to do the number line. We're just going to compare the fractions. Okay, so we have 8 2/4, and we're comparing it to the improper fraction of 25 thirds. Now, again, these are apples and oranges. These are two different types of numbers. This is a mixed number. This is an improper fraction. I cannot compare them the way they are now. I need either both of them to be improper fractions or both of them to be mixed numbers. Now, when I'm given a choice, I prefer changing my improper fraction to a mixed number. So let's do that. And again, we're going back to lesson 24. What does this fraction bar mean? Yes, it means divide. So I'm going to divide. So what's being divided? Yes, our numerator, our top number. So that's going to be 25. What is my divisor? What is the number that's going to be in each group? That's going to be my denominator, yes. So 3 is going to be my divisor. Now, if you're still working with your multiples, you're going to write your multiples to the side. So I have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27. So I'm going to start with my dividend. I'm going to ask myself, what's the closest I can get to 25 without going over? 24. Then I'm going to count how many groups that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 goes in my quotient. So I divide it. My next step is to do what? Multiply. So I'm going to multiply what's in my quotient times my divisor. 8 times 3 is 24. The exact number I just got. Then my next step is to do what? Subtract. 25 minus 24, 1. My remainder is 1. I can't leave this down as a remainder. I have to make it into a fraction because I need a mixed number. So my remainder is going to become my numerator, which is my top number. My denominator has to stay the same. I can't change it. So it's still going to be my 3, which is my divisor. So instead of 25 thirds, above it, we're going to write 8 1/3. Because that's what 25 thirds equal. So I'm comparing 8 2/4 to 8 1/3. Now, I always start, when I'm comparing mixed numbers, I always start with my whole number. We have 8 and 8. Which one is greater? Yes, they're equal. So I can't tell which fraction, which mixed number is greater. So that means I need to compare my two fractions. So over to the side, I'm going to compare 2/4 and 1/3. Now I'm going to use the cross multiplication, the butterfly method. So I'm going to take my top numerator and circle it with my bottom denominator. And 2 times 3 is 6. Then I'm going to take my bottom denominator and circle it with the top numerator of my opposite fraction. And I'm going to multiply. 4 times 1 is 4. And then I'm going to compare them. I don't know if you can see it. I have 6 and I have 4. Which one is greater, 6 or 4? 6 is greater. So the alligator mouth opens to the greater fraction. So that means which one of these is greater? 8 and 2/4 or 8 and 1/3? 8 and 2/4. Because that 2/4 is the bigger fraction. All right, so let's go to the second one in number 2, where we have 79. And we're gonna compare it to 8/24. 2/4, I'm sorry. And again, we're looking at this and we have apples and oranges. We cannot compare improper fractions and mixed numbers. We have to make them the same. And again, I prefer changing the improper fraction to a mixed number. My numbers are just smaller than when I'm comparing my fractions. All right? So, what does this fraction bar means again? Yes, divide. So, our 70 becomes our dividend, what's been divided, and it's being divided by our denominator, which is 9. So we're still using multiples. We're going to write our multiples for 9. So I have 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54, 63, 71. All right. 72, I'm sorry. I was looking at that 70. 72. All right. So I'm asking myself, what's the closest I can get to 70 without going over? 63. Then I'm going to count how many groups that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 goes in my quotient. I divide it. My next step is to multiply. 7 times 9, 63. Same number I just got. And then I subtract 70 minus 63. 7. That 7 becomes my what? Numerator. And then my denominator stays the same, which was 9, which is my divisor. So instead of 79, I have what? 7 and 7/9. Now, can I compare mixed number to mixed number? Yes. And I start with my whole number first. So I'm going to be comparing 7 and 8. Can I tell which one is greater? Yes. 8 is bigger than 7. I don't need to look at the fractions unless the fractions are improper fractions. These are not improper fractions. So the alligator mouth opens to the bigger fraction and mixed number, and 8 is bigger than 7. So we didn't have to do anything with the fraction. All right. So let's go down to the next page in number 3. Number 3A. So we have 5 1/3, and I have 4 3/4. So when we look at this, we need to change either one of them. No, because they're both what? Mixed numbers. So let's pause the video right here where you can try to answer it yourself. All right, we're back. So when we compare fractions or mixed numbers, we always start with the what? Whole number. So we're going to start with 5 and 4. Can we tell which one is greater? Yes, 5 is greater than 4. Now, always look at your fraction though to make sure you don't have an improper fraction there. But we don't have an improper fraction. So remember, improper fraction means more than 1. And if there was an improper fraction, I would add 1 to my whole number. But I don't have 1. All right, so let's go to B. We have 12/6 and 25/12. So again, when we look at this, do we need to change either one of them? No, because when I look at this, I have an improper fraction, and then I have an improper fraction. Remember, improper fraction means the numerator, the top number, is greater than my bottom number. 12 is greater than 6. That means it's more than 1. 25 is greater than 12. That means it's more than 1. So I can just use my cross multiplication on this. So again, let's pause the video because we know how to do cross multiplication and try to work it out on your own. All right, so you should be back and you should have worked it out on your own. So let's check that. So I'm going to take my top number, my numerator on my first fraction, and circle it with the denominator on my second fraction and multiply it. 12 times 12 is 144. Then I'm going to take my bottom number, my denominator of my first fraction, and circle it with the numerator of my second fraction and multiply. So I'm sure you had to write this out because I have to write it out. Definitely couldn't do it in your head. So I have 25 times 6. So I'm going to take my bottom ones and I'm going to multiply each place value at the top. So I'm going to always start with my ones. So my bottom ones times my top ones. 6 times 5 is 30. I'm going to put my 3, put my 0, and carry my 3. I'm going to put plus 3 because I need my brain to change over to adding the 3 after I multiply. Then I'm going to take my bottom ones and multiply by my top 10s. 6 times 2 is 12. Plus my 3 is 15. So 25 times 6 is 150. Then I'm going to compare the two. Which one is greater, 144 or 150? 150. So my alligator mouth opens to my bigger number. So that tells me that 25/12 is greater than 12/6. Yeah, nothing changed, but the numbers got bigger. The first thing we have to do is make sure that our fractions are the same. Either we got 2 improper fractions or we got 2 mixed numbers. And then we compare them the way we always compare them. All right, so let's go to C. So I have 18/7 and 17/5. All right, so again, let's pause here. Well, let's look at it first. Are they the same type of fraction? Yes, this is an improper fraction. My top numerator is bigger than my bottom denominator. And this is an improper fraction. So let's pause the video here and give them time to work it out. All right, so you should be back. It should be unpaused. That means that the majority of you did get an answer. So again, I'm using my butterfly method. I'm going to take my top numerator and circle it with the bottom denominator of my second one. Again, this is not multiplication I can do in my head. So I'm going to write it to the side and multiply. 18 times 5. I'm going to take my bottom number and multiply each top place back. I'm going to take my 5 and multiply times my 1s first. 5 times 8 is 40. Put my 0. Carry my 4. And I'm putting a plus 4 because, again, I need my mind, my brain to change over to addition. Then I'm going to take my bottom 1s and multiply by my top 10s. 5 times 1, 5, plus my 4, 9. So 90 goes on top of my numerator that I have circled. Next, I'm going to take my denominator of my first fraction and circle it with the numerator of my second fraction. So I'm going to multiply 17 times 7. Again, I'm going to start in my ones place. I'm going to multiply each place value at the top by my bottom ones. 7 times 7, 49. I'm going to put my 9, carry my 4. 7 times 1 is 7, plus my 4 is 11. So on top of my 17, I'm going to write 119. Then I'm going to compare the two, 90 and 119. Can I tell which one is greater? Yes, 119 is greater. So the alligator mouth opens to 119. That means the fraction underneath the 119 is my greater fraction. So 17 fifths is my greater fraction. All right, so let's look at D. So again, let's pause here. So we've done some of these. You can definitely do it with your group if you're still struggling. But let's pause here and let's see if we can do this. All right, so you should be back after the pause. The majority of you should have gotten your answer. So let's check it. So anytime that I'm comparing fractions, I'm going to first see what kind of fractions I'm comparing to make sure they're alike. So I have a mixed number here because I have two different types of numbers. Then I have a mixed number here because I have two different types of numbers. So I can compare mixed numbers to mixed numbers. So I always begin with my what? Yes, my whole number. And I'm going to compare it. I have 5 and 5. Can I tell the difference between them? Can I tell which one is greater? No. So that means I need to go to my fraction. I have 2 fifths and I have 5 eighths. I'm going to use the butterfly method to compare them. So I'm going to circle 2 and 8, and I'm going to multiply 2 times 8 is 16. Then I'm going to take my bottom denominator and circle it with the opposite numerator, and I'm going to multiply. 5 times 5 is 25. And I'm going to compare them. Which one is greater, 16 or 25? 25 is bigger. And 25 is above 5 eighths. So I know the mixed number with 5 eighths is the greater fraction. Now, I'm not going to do E with you. You're going to do E on your own. You're going to do F on your own. But let's go to G. I'll do G with you because we've had one of those. But I'm going to do G with you anyway. So let's look at G. We got 31 tenths and 25/8. So again, the first thing I'm looking at is to see if they're both the same type of fraction and they both are improper fraction. So you can pause right here and let them work out G. All right, so if we're back, that means that we've gotten the answer. So I'm going to use the butterfly method. I'm going to circle my numerator and the opposite denominator and multiply. I have 31 times 8. Take my bottom number and multiply each place value. So 8 times 1 is 8. 3 times 8 is 24. So above my 31, I'm writing 248. Then I'm going to take my bottom denominator and circle it with my top numerator and multiply. So I have 25 times 10. Okay, I'm going to put a line through my 0 and take my 0 down to the bottom. Then I'm going to multiply my other place value times this 1. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 2 is 2. So that's 250. 250 goes above my 25, and I compare the two. I have 248 and 250. Which one is greater? Yes, 250. That means the fraction underneath it is the greater fraction. And remember, the alligator mouth opens to the greater fraction. Now, I'm not going to do H with you. You're going to be responsible for H. So far, you're going to do E, F, and H on your own. But let's look at I. I'll do I with you. We have 49/50. And we have 3 and 90/10. So let's look at this. Tell me, what do you see? I hope what you saw was a regular fraction. This is not an improper fraction. This is 49/50. That's just a regular fraction. And then we have a mixed number. A regular fraction has no whole number. It is part of a whole. So we can start, when we compare these, we can start with our whole number. This one has a 0 as a whole number. And this one has 3 as a whole number. But I hope you also saw this improper fraction here. So there's more than 1 over here to be added to this whole number. But we don't have to look at the fractions, because with the whole number, I have 3 and I have 0. So this is a regular fraction. 3 is greater than 0. All right, you're also going to be responsible for J. So on the problem set, and you can work in your groups, you're going to do E, F, H, and J by yourself, independent. I, N, D, E, P. You know how I feel. Okay? And then if we still have time, we're going to do lesson 26, homework. Again, we're not doing the number line. I just want you to compare the fractions the same way we did in this video. And if you need to look back at what we did. So what should we have learned today? The first thing we should have learned, which we already knew, is that we cannot compare apples and oranges. They both have to be either mixed numbers, which means it has a whole number and a fraction, whole number and a fraction. They have to be the same, or they both have to be improper fractions. We cannot compare whole number, mixed numbers, and improper fractions. If we have them like that, we have to change one to the other. What else I should have learned that I already knew is that the less than less than, greater than, equal sign, the alligator mouth that we learned in second grade should be open to the biggest number because it eats the biggest number. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Until next time, fourth grade.